Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gurnanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Praptasya Gurnanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Mahaprabhu ki Tana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romancha Kampasu Taranga Bhajo Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanma Niramajanado Dana Nityanana Shingaratanma Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatapi Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Chaturvidashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangha Kridaiva Trupti Bhajata Sadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Shiradikama Bhavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Shiradikama Bhavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Danalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Vande Gurashi Nikunja Yono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Jukti Apekshaniya Nikunja Yono Ratikeli Siddhai Jayali Bhiri Jukti Tatrati Daksha Ativalavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravrindam Ativalavasa Sakchadharitena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastathava Vyataiva Sadhavi Samasta Shashre Ruktastathava Kintu Praborja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam Priya Eva Tasya Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam Dhyayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatri Sandhya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatyade Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatyade Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Gadadhar Shivasari Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Bo, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hariyaraye Namah, Krishna Jadavaye Namah, Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaye Namah, Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hariyaraye Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Rama Rama Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Radhe Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jaya Baladev Jaya Subhadrama Jaya Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sitaram Sitaram Jayo Lakshman Hanuman Sitaram Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Pramanande Hari Jaya Vishnupada Paramanta Prabhajakacharya Stutar Sarasishama ISKCON Pratishta Bhiviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Siramani Gaura Priyajana Krishna Prema Bhakdata Patita Pavana Abhaycharavina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kuri Vaishnavindi Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavind Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavarana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhana हरि नाम संकीर्तन जग की जय, युग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, बृहदांग ट्रांसलेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेवा की जय, श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपना राधा कुंद समकुंद गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय, श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन मथुर धाम की जय, देलोशिव श्री राधा नीलमाधव की जय, श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्र धाम की जय, परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय, श्री पुरुषोत्तम कित्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु स्माति सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय, भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन करने सिंगरे भगवान की जय, गंगा माय जमुना माय की जय, तुलसी महारानी वृंदी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय, बोलो श्रीमती राधा रानी की जय, समवेत भक्त वृंद की जय, निताय गौरी प्रमानंदे हरि बोल. All glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories, glories to Shri Guru, Shri Gaurang. Sing a prayer? Huh? You want to sing?
I didn't take passion, Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Praladadadayine.
Praladadadayine.
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Hiranyakasipu vaksha.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Jaya Silatankanakalaye.
Ito Narasimho Prato Narasimho.
Ito Nisingha Parato Nisingha.
Yato Yato Yamitato Narasimho.
Jaya Jato Jato Jamitato Nisingha.
Bahe Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha.
Bahir Nisingha Hridaye Nisingha.
Narasimha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade.
Tava Kara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare.
Bhavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakasipu Tanabhinga Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jagadish Hare, Jai Jagadish Hare, Jai Jagadish Hare.
Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha, Lakshmi Narasimha, Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha.
Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Bhakta Prahlad, Srila Prahlad Maharaj.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari.
Lakshmi Narasimha Deva Bhagwan ki jai.
Vrindai Vrindayai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Praridevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Praridevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasibai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Praridevi Sattvatai Namo Namaha. Jishmati Tulasi Maharani Vrindadevi ki. Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namaha Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namaha Radha Krishna Seva Pavan Eyavi Lasila Radha Krishna Radha Krishna Seva Pavan Eyo Vila Je tomara sharanala taravancha purna. Je tomara sharana kripa kori kara tara Vrindavana Vasi. Tumi kripa kari karatare Vrindavana Vasi. Moraya Vilas Kunje Diyoba Nayane Ribo Sada Jugala Ruparasiyame Eni Vedanadhara Sakiranu Kora Sevayadi koro diye koro nijadasi Dina Krishna das koi e enamora Shri Radha Govinda preme sada enabasi Shri Radha Govinda preme sada enabasi Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo Tulasi Krishna Preyasi Namo Namo Jani Kanisa Papani Brahmatari Kanisa Taritane Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Jani Kanisa Papani Brahmatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Yani Kanisa Papani Brahmatari Kanisa Tani Tani Pranasanti Pradakshina Pade Pade Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Tulsi Maharani Brinda Devi Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Brinda Devi Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha Jai Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also grant me a residence in pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry damsels of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me honored servant. This very fallen and lowly Savior Krishna praise. May I always swim in love with Shri Radha and Govinda. Shri Mati Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhastakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpana Maja Gomada Bhagni Nivapana Shri Akari Vachandika Vitaranam Vidya Vadhu Jivanam Ananda Mudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamrita Shradanam Sarvatmasnam Paramparam Jayati Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Nama Hari Bhavna Nida Sarva Shakti Tatra Chitava Kripaya Bhavavanami Durnai Vamukasha Yadinanuraga Dinada Pisunichena Tarura Pisa Vishnuna Amani Namana Dena Kitaniya Sadahari Nadanam Najanam Nasundarim Kavitamba Jagadisha Kamaye Paritama Bisame Bhavambudo Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stitaduli Sadisham Vichintaya Nayanam Galara Shudharaya Padanam Gadagadharudaya Gira Purakaya Nichitam Bapukada Tavanama Grane Bhavisati Juga Itam Nimishena Chakyusa Pravusa Itam Shunya Itam Jagata Sarvam Govinda Virahena Me Astli Shava Padaratam Pinastumam Adarshnar Marmahatam Karotuva Jata Tathava Vidadhatupam Mat Pranatastu Saivana Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurate Shanmaha. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have invested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause that devotes from service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or rather I am falling this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes will be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not be present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kyastakam Ki Jai. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literatures or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To considered with chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which often veils as fruitive activity karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditions of Kripasindavevacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Shri Guru Pranam Mamacharan Ki Jai. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gananjana Subhaka Chakshur Militam Jaina Tasmai Shri Gurave.
Shri Chaitanya Manubhishtam Sarpitam Yena Bhutali Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Hidati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Chitahaprach. Come along. Shri Tam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Itinamini Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivasavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripaddaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujvala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuka Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambhode Padambu Jayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitananda Namine Gora Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Baba Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhoma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpa Turabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavudanyaya Krishna Premapadayate Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gurichase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhakta Bhaktaram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Jayatam Suratur Pangur Mama Manda Mater Gati Matsarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyad Vindaranya Kalpadumada Hashimad Radha Agatmato Shimad Radha Sila Govinda Devo Prestali Bihi Sevyamana Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasa Rambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatak Striyestuna Tapta Kanchana Korangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanustute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Brahmasamita Ki Jai Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chentamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Laksha Vritesa Surabir Palyanti Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambram Sevyamanam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Andar Bhagoti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Lola Chandrakala Sadvan Malyavam Si Ratnam Gadam Pranay Keli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalitani Taprakasam Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Ritimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Naviyovanam Cha Vedesa Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavasara Sampragamyo Vayora Tapi Manasomuni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tatve Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagaranda Kotim Yas Chakti Rasti Jagaranda Chaya Yadanta Adanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Dayomana Jastataiva Samprapya Rupa Maimasana Yanabusa Suktaya Maven Yagana Patitaistuvanti Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bistabirya Evani Jarupa Taya Kalabi Goloka Evani Visata Kilakma Bhuto Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidesu Vilokayanti Yam Shamasundaram Chintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukalani Menatistan Anavatar Makarobu Vanesukintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swasesu Vasudati Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesa Bhutam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Nayahi Yasya Jagananda Satani Sute Trigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamanam Sadva Vulambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajananda Chinmaya Rasat Mataya Manasa Yaprani Nampati Vulam Smaratam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajan Goloka Namni Nijitamni Talechatasya Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute 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 Te Prabhavani Jaya Vitashriyena Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shustistate Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka Chayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga Ichana Rupam Api Yasya Jaistatesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga Sanjayate Naita Taprita Kasteetu Yasambhutam Apita Tasam Paitikayat Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Hita Santanam Abhipetya Dipayate Vita Hetu Samanudarna Yastadri Gevihitya Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narlava Jale Bhajitisma Yoga Nijam Ananta Jagaranda Sarama Kupa Adhara Saktim Avalamya Param Smamurtim Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalam Atavalam Bhajivanti Loma Vilacha Jagaranda Nata Vishnur Mahansa Yasya Kalavi Sesa Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Baswanya Tasma Sakalesu Nijesa Teja Sriyam Kliyat Prakatiyata Pitadradatra Brahmaya Esa Jagaranda Vidanu Karta Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palaviyagam Vinidaya Kumbadvande Pranamas Mayesa Ganadi Raja Vignan Vihanta Malamasa Jagatrayasya Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Manudisascha Kalas Tatakma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschak Suresa Savita Sagalagrahano Raja Samasta Suramurti Sesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmanti Sambrita Kalachakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmota Papa Nichaya Sudayasta Pamsi Brahmadi Kita Patagava Desa Jiva Yadata Matari Bhava Prakatapa Bhava Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastendra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswa Karma Bandhan Rupa Falabhava Jaramatamuti Nuna Karmani Nidahati Kinta Bhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Kroda Kamasa Japanayadi Biti Vatsalya Moha Guru Guru Vasevya Bhava Sanchinti Tasha Sabrisantanam Apurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpatarabo Tumabu Mishintama Niganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriya Saki Chiranandam Jyotij Param Apitad Aswatyam Apitcha Sayatra Shiradi Hishavadi Shirabi Vyasta Sumahan Nimesa Dakyova Vajatina Hiatrapi Samaya Vajeswita Dvipam Tamaham Ihil Kul Kamitiyam Vedanta Stes Santakshiti Virachara Katipaye Che Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. The spiritual master receiving the benediction from ocean of mercy. Just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. For my respectful obeisance to the Lotus feet is such a spiritual master, who's an ocean of auspicious qualities, chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the sanctified movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is rousing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. Off my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet is such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is always engaged in temple worship of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet. Such a spiritual master. Spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and stuck. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet. Such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and the qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet. Such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus feet. Such spiritual master. Spiritual master to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord, because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all of his scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet. Such spiritual master is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the Krishna of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 3, verse number 8. Asam muhurta ekasmin nana garesu yositam savidam jagre panin anurupa swamayaya. Asam, all those. Muhurte, at one time. Ekasmin, simultaneously. Nana agresu, agaresu, sorry. Nana agaresu, in different compartments. Yositam, of the women. Savidam, with perfect rituals. Jagre, accepted. Panin, hands. Anurupa, exactly to match. Swamayaya, by his internal potency. Translation by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. All those princesses were lodged in different apartments, and the Lord simultaneously assumed different bodily expansions, exactly matching each and every princess. He accepted their hands in perfect rituals by his internal potency. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. In the Brahma Samhita 5.33, the Lord is described as follows in regard to his innumerable plenary expansions. Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam adyam puranas purusham navayovanam cha vedesa durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami. The Lord, Govinda, whom I worship, is the original personality of Godhead. He is non-different from his innumerable plenary expansions, who are all infallible, original, and unlimited, and who have eternal forms. Although he is primeval, the oldest personality, he is always fresh and young. By his internal potency, the Lord can expand himself into various personalities of Swayam Prakasa, and again into Prabhava and Vaibhava forms, and all of them are non-different from one another. The forms into which the Lord expanded to marry the princesses is different in different apartments were all slightly different just to match each and every one of them. They are called Vaibhava Vilasa, forms of the Lord, and are affected by his internal potency, Yoga Maya. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. All those princesses were lodged in different apartments, and the Lord simultaneously assumed different bodily expansions, exactly matching each and every princess. He accepted their hands in perfect rituals by his internal potency. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a very, very interesting verse and purport because, again, these are unique qualities of Krishna that no one else can emulate. No one can marry 16,108 wives. No one can maintain 16,108 wives. They can't even maintain one wife. How they're going to maintain 16,108? And no one is able to build palaces for each of those queens. In other words, 16,108 palaces. It's not that the Lord has a gigantic factory with a lot of bunk beds, and they all live together. Each one has each queen or each princess has her own, palace decked with rubies and diamonds and amethysts and different types of precious gems, as well as everything is made in marble, and it's complete opulence. So, and then expands himself, 16,108 wives, and adjusts his expansions to be what you would call very attuned to the wife. So each woman is different, and each one of Krishna's expansions, although they're absolute expansions, adjust to the mentality, or let's say the special qualities of each princess. So this is like impossible to even imagine, let alone emulate. So it's very important that we understand this is part of the science of Krishna, his absolute unique qualities. So in this purport, it uses some technical terms that we have to understand. These technical terms are explained in 3 places in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in Adi Lila chapter 1, verse number 20. Verse number 70, 69, 70, and 71, 72, 73, 74, and 75, where it says, when the personality of Godhead expands himself in many forms, all non-different in their features, as Lord Krishna did when he married 16,000 queens, and when he performed his rasa dance. Such forms of the Lord are called manifested forms, or prakasa vigrahas. Now, what is it, prakasa vigrahas? So there's 2 words that we have to learn first. That's actually 4 words, but we're going to learn these 2 first. It's prakasa and vilasa. So what does that mean? Let me read on a little bit more. It is astounding that Lord Sri Krishna, who is one without a second, expanded himself in 16,000 similar forms to marrying 16,000 queens in their respective homes. So he married 16,108, but the first 16,000 were the ones that were kidnapped by Narakasura. And after he killed Narakasura, each one of these girls, or princesses who had been kidnapped by Narakasura, they could never get married because the laws were not laws, but the culture was so strict that if the daughter of a king or anybody spent 1 day away from home without, let's say, in the company of other people, or if they were kidnapped, like in the case of these princesses, no one would ever marry them because they would be considered defiled by the kidnapper or the persons that kidnapped her or took her away or whatever. So, but these girls were kept for at least 1 year or more by Narakasura. So therefore, they explained to Krishna, no one's going to marry us, Krishna, but you're the one that saved us, so you have to marry us. And Krishna said, well, how can I marry you? They said, please don't joke around. We know who you are. You're the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You can marry 16 million wives if you want. So, therefore, Krishna did marry all of them. And then there's an extra 108 wives that Krishna also married after winning their hands, just like Rukmini and Satyabhama and so forth, by what you would call Kshatriya marriages. Kshatriya marriage. Kshatriya marriage is there's a fight, and the Kshatriya defeats all the other suitors, and then he gets married to her, or he kidnaps her. The Kshatriya is also kidnapped. Krishna kidnapped Rukmini. Right? So, and then they tried to stop him, and he had to kill the soldiers, and then they finally gave up, like Sisupala and others. And then, here we see that it continues. When Lord Krishna, surrounded by groups of cowherd girls, began the festivities of the rasa dance, the Lord of all mystic powers placed himself between each two girls. So this is, again, he's dancing with an innumerable number of gopis in the rasa dance, and he is expanding himself between each couplet or between the two gopis, and each gopi thinks that he's dancing only with her, and so he was dancing with all this huge number of gopis, and so these forms that are exactly the same as his original form, Shamsundar, they are called prakasa. Now, sometimes there are slight differences in the forms that he expands, like Balaram. Krishna is dark-colored and Balaram is light-colored. So, therefore, those type of expansions of Krishna, where he adjusts his features somewhat, like for example Narayana in Goloka, in Vaikuntha. Well, Narayana has 4 arms, right? So there's a slight difference between Krishna's 2-arm form and his 4-arm form as Narayana. So those are called vilasa, or pastime forms, and so we have prakasa and vilasa. Now you also have prabhava and vaibhava. So in the purport it talks about swayam prakasa. So swayam means the original transcendental form of Shamsundar. And then it says, and again into prabhava and vaibhava forms. So prabhava means that the form that Krishna takes is fully potent, has all the powers of Krishna's original form. And when it says vaibhava forms, he doesn't have, in those forms, he doesn't have all the powers of the prabhava forms. But there's still expansions of himself, but it doesn't manifest all his forms in those particular expansions. So we're going to explain that in more detail now. So therefore he says, later on he says, and again prabhava and vaibhava forms, and all of them are non-different from one another. The forms into which the Lord expanded to marry the princesses in different apartments were all slightly different, just to match each and every one of them. They are called vaibhava vilasa. So now he mixed the words. There's prakasa and vilasa, right? And there's prabhava and vaibhava. Now he's saying that these forms that he manifested for these different princesses were vaibhava vilasa. That means vaibhava means they're they don't. That form does not manifest all the powers of the Lord. But vilasa means it's a pastime form, and there's some slight differences between Krishna's original Shamsundar form and the form that he's manifesting with these princesses. Right. So there you have Vaibhava Vilasa, forms of the Lord, and are affected by his internal potency. So now let's continue to read in the Adi Lila, first chapter, and now we're going to read verses 73 and 74. When the cowherd girls, now he's talking about the Rasa Lila here, when the cowherd girls and Krishna thus joined together, each girl thought that Krishna was dearly embracing her alone. To behold this wonderful pastime of the Lord's, the denizens of heaven, in other words, the demigods, and their wives, all very eager to see the dance, meaning the rasa dance, flew in the sky in their hundreds of airplanes. They showered flowers and beat sweetly on drums. Now, the word sweetly is very important because sometimes a drummer, like Prabhuji here, Ganapati's a drummer, right? Sometimes they just bang the drum as if it's like, the end of the world, right? And but here they sweetly are playing the drums. The demigods are sweetly playing the drums. So there's a big difference between banging on the drum and sweetly playing the drums. So then the next verse, 75, says, if numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called prakasa vigrahas of the Lord. Now, it's going back to the first word, prakasa and vilasa, right? So a prakasa vigraha means it's exactly the same form of Sham Sundar with no slight variation in the qualities, right? So this is the definition of prakasa forms. If numerous forms, all equal in their features, are displayed simultaneously, such forms are called prakasa vigrahas of the Lord. So Balaram is not a prakasa vigraha because there's a slight difference. His color is light and Krishna's color is dark. Okay? Vigraha means a form. Okay. So, and it says, so then the next verse, 76, says, but when the numerous forms are slightly different from one another, they're called vilasa vigrahas. Okay, so there's prakasa and vilasa. Prakasa means Krishna's original form, Sham Sundar, and vilasa means there's slight differences from that original form, like Balaram, like Narayana, etc. Okay. So then he continues, when the Lord displays numerous forms with different features by his inconceivable potency, such forms are called vilasa vigrahas. So that's the definition of vilasa. So we have prakasa and vilasa. Examples of such vilasa vigrahas are Baladeva, or Balaram, Narayana in Vaikuntha Dhama, and the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Padumna, and Aniruddha. So, from Balaram, you get the first Chaturvyuha, and from the first Chaturvyuha, you get Narayana. Okay. So, the Chaturvyuha are Narayana forms, 4 arms, and you have Sankarshan, you have Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So this word Vasudeva, so when it's a short A, like Vasudeva, it's different than when it's Vasudeva. Vasudeva refers directly to Krishna. When it says Vasudeva, it can refer to Krishna's father. It can refer to these vilasa forms of Krishna, and it can refer also in a general way to it can also refer to Narayana. Okay. Okay. And it can also, the fourth way, it can also refer to the whole material creation. So we'll come back to that another time. So then it says, examples of such Vilasa Vigrahas or Vilasa forms are Baladeva Narayana in Vaikuntadama and the Chaturvyuha, Vasudeva, Sankarsan, Pradumna, and Aniruddha. So Vasudeva, with a long A, is referring to Krishna in his form as Narayana. Then he says, the energies, meaning the consorts, like the gopis, of the Supreme Lord are of three kinds. The Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, the queens in Dwarka, and the gopis in Vrindavana. The gopis are the best of all, for they have the privilege of serving Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, the son of the king of Vraja. Now, the question is, why does it say that they have the privilege of serving Sri Krishna, as opposed to what? The queens in Dwarka, like Rukmini, what? She's also serving Krishna, right, as his wife. And Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, they're also serving Lord Vishnu. So why does it say, for they have the privilege of serving Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, the son of the king of Vraja? Because Krishna is original form in Sham Sundar, right? That's why it's saying that. Because with Rukmini, she's one of the queens that he married. He's adjusting his attributes for specifically for her, like say, mentality or her consciousness. And for the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha, well, they're serving the Lord definitely, but not in his original Shamsundar form, serving Narayanas. Okay. So then it says, the personal associates of the primeval Lord Sri Krishna are his devotees who are identical with him. He is complete with his entourage of devotees. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, Sri Krishna and his various personal expansions are non-different in potential power. These expansions are associated with further secondary expansions or servitor expansions who are called devotees. Well, he's saying that Sri Krishna and his various personal expansions are non-different in potential power. Well, that means that all these different expansions, where they are Krishna in his Prabhasa form as Sham Sundar, or Krishna in his form as Balaram, or Narayana, or Krishna in other forms, such as the avatars, like Lord Nrsingadev and Vamanadev and Varaha and so forth, Matsya, or Krishna in his form of Vishnu, and especially Kshirodakshai Vishnu, where there's trillions of Kshirodakshai Vishnu expansions into every atom of the material universe, and there are many universes also, an infinite number of universes, and then also in the heart of every living entity, and there's an infinite number of living entities, see? So, therefore it says, the personal associates of the primeval Lord Sri Krishna are his devotees, who are identical with him. He is complete with his entourage of devotees. So the devotees cannot be separated from Krishna, right, in the sense that they're always in his association, not that they are Krishna. And then it says in the purport, Sri Krishna's various personal expansions are non-different in potential power. These expansions are associated with further secondary expansions or servitor expansions, who are called devotees. So everything is emanating from Krishna. And Krishna can have, he is the source of all energy and power, whether it's spiritual energy or material energy. Okay, and even though he has his original form of Shan Sundar, he also has these other variant forms that have either slight differences like Balaram or major differences like Nrsingadev. But all of those expansions have this transcendental power of the original form of Krishna, right? It can be sometimes to more or lesser degree, but they all are empowered incarnations of the Lord. Okay, so now next we go to the, one second. This point of Prakasa, Vilasa, and Prabhava and Vaibhava is explained in 3 different places. So next we go to Adi Lila, 2nd chapter, verse number 97, which says, the personality Godhead Sri Krishna enjoys himself in 6 primary expansions. His 2 manifestations are Prabhava and Vaibhava. Okay, so now we first talked about Prakasa and Vilasa, right? Prakasa means Krishna's original form, Shyam Sundar, with all the inherent powers that he has. And then Vilasa forms like Balaram and Narayana are slightly different than the Lord, but they still have all the power of the Lord, right? Like Balaram. Now, or Narayan. Now we go to Prabhava and Vaibhava. Prabhava means that an incarnation of Krishna has all the power of the Lord. And Vaibhava means they are lacking a little bit of the original power of the Lord. Okay, so let's read what it says. Now the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita turns to a description of the personality of Godhead Krishna in his innumerable expansions. The Lord primarily expands himself in 2 categories, namely Prabhava and Vaibhava. The Prabhava forms are fully potent, like Sri Krishna, and the Vaibhava forms are partially potent. The Prabhava forms are manifested in relation with potencies, but the Vaibhava forms are manifested in relations with excellences. So excellences, so one is potency, and the other is excellences. So excellences are also explained in Bhagavad Gita, where it says, okay, did I bring the Bhagavad Gita? Yeah. It says that in the 11th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, they're called vibhutis. These are excellences. These are very, very excellent qualities, right? And these vibhutis are explained in different places in the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so then it says, so there's potencies, that is Prabhava, and there's excellences, Vaibhava. The potent Prabhava manifestations are also of 2 varieties, temporary and eternal. The Mohini, Hamsa, and Sukla forms are manifested only temporarily in terms of a particular age. So Mohini was the female form that Krishna took and bewildered Lord Shiva. And Hamsa and Sukla are other forms that he's taken. And they're only manifested temporarily. They don't have eternal planets in Vaikuntha. Okay. Among the other Prabhavas, who are not very famous according to the material estimation, are Dhanvantari, Rishabha, Vyasa, Dattatreya, and Kapila. Among the so those are Prabhavas who have the full power of the Lord, or who are vested with one power but completely. So that would be like, as it says here, so it says Dhanvantari, Rishabha, Vyasa, who has complete power of literary production, right? But He doesn't dance with the gopis, and he's not like killing demons and things like that, right? So, but he has one power completely. And then among the Vaibhava Prakasa forms of Krishna are Kurma and Matsya, Naranarayana, Varaha, Hayagriva, Prishnigarbha, Baladeva, Yagya, Vibhu, Satyasena, Hari, Vaikunta, Ajita, Vamana, Sarvabhauma, Rishabha, Vishvaksena, Dharmaksetu, Sudama, Yogeswara, and Brihadbhanu. So these are incarnations of the Lord that don't have complete power, right? They have a lot of power, but not complete power. All right. His incarnations are two kinds, namely partial and empowered. He appears in two ages, childhood and boyhood. Purport. So this is verse 90. I read 97 and now 98 in Adi Lila chapter 2. The Vilasa forms are 6 in number. Incarnations are of two varieties, namely Shaktyavasha, empowered, and Amsavesha, partial. These incarnations also come within the category of Prabhava and Vaibhava manifestations. Childhood and boyhood are two special features of the personality Godhead, Shri Krishna, but his permanent feature is his eternal form as an adolescent youth. The original personality Godhead, Shri Krishna, is always worshipped in his eternal adolescent form. Okay, so adolescent means he never looks older than like 16 to 20, right? The personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, who is eternally an adolescent, is the primeval Lord, the source of all incarnations. He expands himself in these 6 categories of forms to establish his supremacy throughout the universe. Okay, so let's read the purport. No, there's no purport. Then the next verse with the purport says, in these 6 kinds of forms there are innumerable varieties. Although there are many, they are all one. There is no difference between them. In the purport, Prabhupada says, the personality of Godhead manifests himself in 6 different features. Prabhava, 1. 2. Vaibhava, 3. Empowered incarnations. 4. Partial incarnations. 5. Childhood. And 6. Boyhood. So those are the 6 kinds of forms that the Lord manifests. The personality Godhead, Sri Krishna, whose permanent feature is adolescence, enjoys his transcendental proclivities by performing pastimes in these 6 forms. In these 6 features, there are unlimited divisions of the personality Godhead's forms. The jivas, or living beings, are differentiated parts and parcels of the Lord. They are all diversities of the one without a second, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So in other words, everything is coming from Krishna. All the living entities coming from Krishna. The material world is coming from Krishna. The spiritual world is coming from Krishna. And so, therefore, Krishna is everything, but everything is not Krishna. That means everything you see is made of Krishna's energies. He has spiritual energy and material energy. Although everything is emanating from him, still he is unique. And that's what we learn when we read Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. All those absolutely unique qualities of Krishna no one else can emulate. So that's called the science of God. Then he says, so then the third place where this is further explained is, I'll tell you in a second. It's in the Adi Lila chapter 4, where it says, verses 74, 75, where it says, now please listen to how, this is 73, now please listen to how Lord Krishna's consorts, meaning gopis, help him taste rasa, or nectarian pastimes, and how they help his pastimes. The beloved consorts of Lord Krishna are of three kinds: the goddesses of fortune, that is, Lakshmis, the queens, that like Rukmini and Dwarka, and the milkmaids of Raja, those are the gopis, who are the foremost of all. These consorts all proceed from Radhika. So Radhika is the origin of Rukmini and other wives of Krishna. She's the origin also of all the living, all women, in fact. Okay, so then it says, these consorts all proceed from Radhika. Just as the fountainhead, Lord Krishna, is the cause of all incarnations, so Sri Radha is the cause of all these consorts. So the gopis, the queens in Dwarka, and and then all the those two. Okay, so then next it says, the goddesses of fortune are partial manifestations of Srimati Radhika, and the queens are reflections of her image. The goddesses of fortune are her plenary portions, and they display the forms of Vaibhava Vilasa. The queens are of the nature of her Vaibhava Prakasa. Okay. So the Lakshmis, they are Vaibhava Vilasa. That means that they have partial powers of the Lord, and for Vilasa means for pastimes, and they have slightly different qualities than Radhika or Radharani. And then the queens, so those are Lakshmis. Then the queens in Dwarka are of the nature of her Vaibhava Prakasa. So that means Vaibhava, again, they don't have all the powers of Krishna. But Prakasa, they look very similar to the original form of Radharani. Okay, so the Vrajavasis have diverse bodily features. They are her expansions and are the instruments of expanding rasa. So now the gopis, the Vrajavasis, they have different bodily features, and then they specifically manifest qualities that enhances the transcendental pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So, without many consorts, there is not such exaltation in rasa. Therefore, there are many manifestations of Srimati Radharani to assist in the Lord's pastimes. So, among them are various groups of consorts in Vraja, Vrindavana, who have varieties of sentiments and mellows. They help Lord Krishna taste all the sweetness of the rasa dance and other pastimes. Okay, so these are the three places where this Prakasa, Vilasa, Prabhava, and Vaibhava are explained. So Prakasa means Krishna's original form of Shyam Sundar. Vilasa means expansion of Krishna that's slightly different, like Baladev and Narayana. Prabhava means full power of Krishna in every way. And Vaibhava means partial power of Krishna. Right? Incarnations have partial powers of Krishna. And then you can mix. Then you get mixed things like prakasa and vaibhava, or prakasa and prabhava, and so forth. Okay, so it might sound a little confusing, but this is the science of Krishna. You have to know this. These are unique things about the Lord. So, Vilasa means somewhat different than the original form of Krishna as Shamsundar. Prakasa means an expansion of Krishna exactly resembling him. Okay. Prabhava means full power of Krishna, and Vaibhava means partial power of Krishna. Okay, and that also, the same analogy is there when you talk about Radharani and her expansions, which are the gopis in Vrindavana, the queens in Dwarka, and the Lakshmis in Vaikuntha. Okay. All right, so then now we'll come back to this purport today in text 8 of chapter 3, canto 3, chapter 3. It says that the Lord Govinda, whom I worship, is the original personality of Godhead. He is non-different from his innumerable plenary expansions, who are all infallible. Infallible means they're all perfect. There's no fault in them at all. Original and unlimited, who have eternal forms. Although he is primeval, meaning you cannot really figure out how long he's been existing in the material world. So it says, although he is primeval, the oldest personality, he is always fresh and young. So that's another quality of Krishna. He never grows old. Now, if you go to the Sistine Chapel in Rome, which is the seat of the whole Catholic religion, you'll see a magnificent painting by Michelangelo on the ceiling, and it depicts God creating Adam and Eve. But how did he paint God? Well, he got the information from the Pope and from the elders of the church at that time. And he painted him as an old man with wrinkles and white hair and furrows in his brow and so forth. So he basically portrayed God as an old man. Now this is wrong, because Krishna is Yavano Nava Yovanam Cha. He never grows old. Achyutam Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Nava Yovanam Cha. So in that verse, which is Brahma Samhita, which is what he quoted here today, fifth chapter, verse 33. Navayovanam Cha means he never grows old. He never grows older than looking like he's like either 16 to 20. So, therefore, the Catholic Church does not understand much about the science of God. They understand some things, but not everything. To understand Krishna, you would have to definitely read the Srimad Bhagavatam, as we're doing, and learn all these unique qualities of the Lord. He never grows old. Why? Because he's the controller of time. He's not subject to time. But the Catholic Church did not understand that. And the popes at that time did not understand it. They still don't understand it, because they haven't erased that painting by Michelangelo. Anybody who goes to the Sistine Chapel, I went there once, and you look, it's a magnificent painting, but you can look it up on the internet right now. Picture of God painted by Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. And you'll see, he portrays God as an old man. And this is nonsense. That, in other words, he is giving God a pejorative identity. That's a nice word, pejorative. What did you find the picture? What's he look like? A microphone. You have the microphone. Microphone.
It's depicting that the Lord is an old man with beard and gray hair.
Furrows in his forehead.
Yes. And then he's about to touch with his hand the young man who's I think
Adam.
Adam.
Yeah, he's touching him, making him come alive. Yeah. Yeah, so you see, it's all speculation. So if they don't even know, so by the way, the Muslims are smarter. They say you're not allowed to make any image of God. Why? Because you'll do what the Catholics do. You speculate, you make him look like an old man. Whereas the Muslims, at least, because there's no description of God in the Quran, Muhammad forbid anyone from making an image of God. Because they don't have any information about God's form, or they hardly have any information about the spiritual world. So they're a little bit more, let's say, careful in their the way they might depict God. Whereas the Catholics, they just went full speed into speculation and make God look like he's an old man. So that's a real sad thing. So this verse, 533 of the Brahma Samhita, is a very important verse because it explains the unique qualities of Krishna. Advaitam, meaning there's no duality in him. Like in our existence right now, there's plenty of dualities. Like for the number one duality, there's a difference between our soul and our body. It's a huge duality. And most people never understand that I am not this body. They just don't understand it. Right? So there are other dualities in the body. Like, for example, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's hot. Sometimes you have money, sometimes you don't have money. I mean, it's full of dualities, and all based on the false identification with the body. If you don't identify with the body, you identify with the soul, then you become free of these dualities. And if you identify yourself as the eternal servant of God, then you have completely free of dualities, because you will not make any decision without conferring or approaching Guru, and there's 6 Diksha Gurus, and getting advice, what is the right path to follow. So the right path is always staying in the association of devotees and in the service of Krishna. So let's say you're living here right now, and then you think, oh, maybe I should, buy a house, but they're very expensive. But if I get a house, in Bothell or in Kent, it's a lot less expensive. So now, should you just go ahead and buy the house in Kent or Bothell? Or should you ask Guru? If you ask Guru will say, don't do it. Because when you're living near the temple, you have much more facility for engaging in devotional service. But if you move up to Bothell, or let's say Marysville, or down to Federal Way, you won't come to the temple all the time. It's a little too far. So, therefore, the whole culture is to be close to Krishna. So then that would stop you from going away from Krishna, in the sense of living, much far enough so that it's not easy for you to come all the time to the temple. Now, the opposite sometimes happens. Like, I know someone who was living in Bellevue, and then he decided, let me buy a house or let me rent someplace near the temple so I can come. So when he was living in Bellevue, he came more than when he moved close to the temple. So therefore, that's the reverse of. So in other words, he increased his duality by moving near the temple, rather than decreasing it, because it identifies with his body, not with his soul. So to become free of dualities, you have to identify with your soul, not the body. And then you realize that it's actually a sin not to surrender to Krishna. It's actually a sin, and it's the cause of all problems in life. And this is hard for people to understand, but it's a fact that when you surrender to Krishna, then you're free of dualities, because you only make decisions to stay close to Krishna all the time, right? So, therefore, in this verse, Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakta, the third line, is also very significant, because it says, that it's very hard to understand the Vedic literature. Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto. But if you engage in devotional service, it becomes easy to understand Krishna. That's a very famous line, the third line of this verse, 533. Vedesa Durlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto. That it's very difficult to understand Krishna. But if you surrender to Krishna and engage in devotional service, it's very easy to understand. Okay, so are there any questions? So today we talked about Prakasa, Vilasa, and Prabhava, and Vaibhava. Which is part of the science of Krishna. Right. But see, to understand that, you have to go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is the postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. I'm lucky enough to have a one book edition of the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. Otherwise, you have to, I think it's like 12 books. But this is a one book version of it. They don't print these anymore, unfortunately. Any questions? Yes. Our drummer.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
In today's verse, what is this? 338, right?
338, yes.
338. We were talking about the Prabhava and Vaibhava forms, and immediately after that it clearly says that and all of them are non-different from one another. But I understood from the lecture that there are differences, and some have absolute potency.
No,
and some
non-different in
don't.
power. But there might be some differences in the, in the form that they have.
Okay.
Like Balaram is non-different than Krishna, right? But as far as power goes, but as far as color of his color, he's light colored, and Krishna is dark colored. Right? Narayana has all the powers of Krishna, but he doesn't have all the pastimes of Krishna. You never see Narayana playing a flute or dancing with the gopis. So there's some slight differences. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll stop here. Hare Krishna. You see, the science of Krishna is not that easy. He's the Supreme Personality Godhead. But once you begin to understand the science of Krishna, you become very attracted to Krishna because you realize he's absolutely unique. There's no one equal to or greater than him. And it's really necessary to understand this. So Prabhu, before you go, let me just talk to you 1 second.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bando Moi Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bai E Baba Toriya Jai Krishna Prapti ho ja hoy de Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitite Koriya Kya Arana kori ho mane asha Shri Guru Charani Rati Aise Utama Gati Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asha Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme Prabhu se Divya Gyan Hriday Prakasito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hote Avidya Vinasa Jate Vedega Jara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokena Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya Ibi Jaz Gaushik Tribhuvana pavana. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.